When church family hurts you, and yet you still have to see them at church, how do you deal with your own trauma and emotions? And this is assuming that you've already tried to resolve things through the biblical process. You know, God says that if you're going to come and worship me, and yet you have aught with your brother, go deal with that before you come and talk to me. He really wants us to try to make restitution and resolve those issues as best as possible. So if you've gone through those processes and it's still not resolved, then you just have to, like I said, deal with your own self and your own emotions and that trauma and the grief and the loss and the uncomfortableness every time you see them at church, and how to not become bitter, how not to become passive aggressive in everything that you do. What do you do when you see them and your adrenaline kicks in and your heart starts racing and you feel overwhelmed and the darkness, and you feel like, oh, I want to be at church to serve the Lord, but I'm so distracted because of everything that's going on inside. And we really are our own worst enemy, far more than what anybody can do to us. And there was a preacher, Wayne Shemish, who talked about provocation. And the whole entire sermon was how if Satan can't destroy us by what somebody does to us, what he'll do is get us to destroy ourselves. And he talked about this poison pen woman who would send him these awful letters and give them to the church office, and he just got to the point where he just wouldn't read them, but he still had to see her all the time, little Miss Poison Pen. And then I think about, I'll talk about a little bit more, but how to not allow Satan provoke us to make us useless in ministry by how we act or react to our own emotions. So the first thing is this truth: we cannot control our own emotions. They will happen, but we can engage in the battle for our thought life. And our thoughts control our emotions. For instance, when Colton had his accident, that was a trauma. And my mind would go there. I'd be laying awake at night, or even my dreams, and still today I have dreams where I relive that moment and all of the fears and all of the helplessness. And it causes the pain over and over. And it never really happens at a time where, I feel like, oh, I'm definitely in control now. I'll be able to just engage in that. But we have to. And so what happens is when all of that adrenaline rushes up to our brain, what we have to start doing is thinking conscious thoughts and asking ourselves questions so that we can engage and draw all that energy back into our to a logical process. And what I would first start doing is take yourself to the rock that is higher than I. You start reminding yourself and asking questions like, are these feelings valid? Is there anything that I can do about them? And Lord, how do you want me to respond? And you kind of go to that, it was that he hideth my soul in the cleft of the rock. And you have to go to that place where you are safe with the Lord, because he knows you. He knows all the situations. He knows what you've been through. He knows the prayer. He has mercy, and he is the one we are to please. And with that being said, I want to tell you, the next point is smile and then hand them the radio part, which might sound silly, but I have a missionary friend. In some cultures, like the warmer cultures, the South of the United States, they have a way of being very pleasant to you and yet dishonest when they're not around you. It's the bless her heart mentality. In Eastern cultures, and in this one lady's place where she was as a missionary, they esteem honor more than truth. And with that in regard, it's fine in their cultures to lie as much as they want about you and behind your back. But if you ever question about them, they'll deny it. And so in this case, this missionary, actually I have two different missionaries who had something similar happen. And these people that they were working with in the ministry tried to get them kicked out of the country. And yet when they were talking face to face, oh, we are so glad you are here. You're just the best missionary, such good friends. Is there anything I can do to help you? And then literally like that same week, one was a missionary to China and the guy was trying to get them deported. And they were shocked because they felt like, oh, but he loves us. He said he loves us. And he didn't. But in this other situation, they still had to work with this person. The man was not going to acknowledge all of the lies. He just completely flat out denied it. And they had to work with them in the ministry. And this lady said she just didn't want to. She didn't want to open the door. But they had to help them with this radio part. And this guy works in their ministry. And he was a national. And something in the radio broke. And so the missionaries bought it and had to go and help him and pretend like nothing was wrong. And it reminds me of my pastor. I remember somebody was saying awful, awful things on social media. And then they came to church and I just wanted to like completely walk away from them. And my pastor stuck out his hand and said, "So good to see you." And I just thought, what grace. And when I was asking this missionary lady about it, and she said, I just had to remember that I love God. I might not love man, but I love God. And I'm here to serve God. I'm not here to serve man. And so that goes to the next point. So that point was hand them the radio part and smile. But when they come to the door, you open the door and you don't burn that bridge because you're serving God, not them. So the next point is commit thy works unto the Lord and thy thoughts shall be established. I posted just a little bit ago about never underestimate the power of one foot in front of the other. And this is when it gets really practical, where you say, here I am at church, Lord, what's my job? And I'm not saying like a job in the ministry. I'm saying, what does God want you to do there? And do it. Commit thy works unto the Lord. And if your job is to worship him and to focus on the songs that you're singing, or to grow as a Christian and listen to the message, or if your job is to smile and say, it's good to see you, and not avert eye contact and love them, then do your job because you're serving God and not man. So those are my main points. Control your thought life because your thought life controls your emotions. Engage in truths that God is your haven of rest and that he knows you and he knows the whole story and you are safe in that cleft of the rock. Smile. Don't burn a bridge. Serve God, not man. And 4, commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. And that goes full circle because when your thoughts are established, then your emotions will eventually work themselves out.